네, 여러분 안녕하세요. 목요일입니다. 오늘은 제가 좀 많이 늦었는데요. 늦은 이유가 있습니다. 왜냐하면 오늘은 끝입니다. 드디어 My Name is Ray 완독하는 날입니다. 원래는 내일 끝내려고 했는데 읽다 보니까 마지막 챕터까지 그냥 오늘 끝내도 양이 될 것 같더라고요. 그래서 오늘은 chapter 57부터 마지막 장인 chapter 59까지 끝내기로 했습니다. 와, 기분이 너무 좋아요. 솔직히 진짜 이 책 읽으면서 너무 힘들었거든요. 고전은 이렇게 두꺼운 고전은 제대로 된 그 원작을 읽는 건 처음이었던 것 같은데 좋은 경험이기도 했지만 참 힘들기도 했어요. 네, 그래서 이번을 마지막으로 한번 진행을 해보도록 하겠습니다. Chapter 57, Chapter 56에서는 Stork, Butterfly 그리고 Black이 올리브를 찾아서 Dervish의 페어, 그 페어를 방문을 합니다. 그리고 올리브는 이들을 맞이하게 되는데 당연히 올리브를 의심하고 있는 사람들은 집을 수색하기 시작하죠. 그래서 여기서 이제 여러 가지 말들을 오가면서 dervishes 그 앞에서 얼어 죽은 그 두 명의 dervishes가 사실은 올리브의 작품이었음이 나옵니다. 그 다음에 이제 그들은 커피하우스가 전에 결국 습격이 되어서 모든 게 다 부셔지고 사람도 죽고 그런 일이 있었죠. 그 상황에서 스토리텔러가 이야기를 펼칠 때 사용하던 그림들을 보여줍니다. 그리고 그 자리에서 그 그림들 중에 말 그림만 빼고 새 화가들이 그린 거라는 게 확인이 됩니다. 이제 말 그림도 이 세 명 중에 한 명은 그린 거죠. 그 다음에 블랙은 자신이 마스터 오스만과 함께 보물고에서 이틀 동안 대가들의 그림을 보면서 들은 것에 대해서 이야기를 막 하기 시작합니다. 뭔가 자극을 해가지고 자백을 받아내고 싶은 거겠죠. They're among the great works of the old masters. He showed me how you had a style, said Black. He taught me how the hidden fault of style isn't something the artist selects of his own violation, but is determined by the artist's past and his forgotten memories. He also showed me how these secret faults, weaknesses, and defects, at one time such a source of shame, they were concealed so they wouldn't be estranged from the old masters, will henceforth emerge to be praised as personal characteristics or style, because the European masters have spread them over the world. Henceforth, thanks to fools who take pride in their own shortcomings, the world will be a more colorful and more stupid and of course a much more imperfect place. The fact that Black confidently believed in what he said proved that he was one of the new breed of fools. 하지만 올리브는 별로 동요를 하지 않습니다. 오히려 얘가 바보구나 이렇게 얘기를 합니다. 그러면서 자신이 마스터 오스만을 얼마나 동경하고 사랑하는지 그러한 자신이 그분이 마스터 오스만이 싫어하는 서양화를 그렸을 리가 없다고 반박을 합니다. 하지만 말을 듣지 않고 버터플라이와 스토크와 블랙은 페어를 수색하기 시작하죠. 그 수색하는 상황에서 이 올리브는 이들이 살인자를 찾아서 정의를 실현하겠다는 마음 외에도 다른 욕망이 있는 걸 간파합니다. 이제 올리브의 입장에서만 얘기를 하자면 블랙은 먼저 셰크의 마음을 완전히 얻기 위해 그 다음에 NST의 프로젝트를 완료하기 위해 스토크는 버터플라이가 오스만이랑 버터플라이 이 둘을 제거하고 자신이 화가들의 총책임자가 되고 싶어서 이제 살인자를 찾게 된다. 이거를 깨닫게 되는데요. 하지만 그들이 찾는 건 결국 올리브가 그 페어에 놔둔 여분의 옷과 돈 그런 것만 알게 됩니다. 이제 살인자가 누군지를 찾지 못한 자들 이 4명은 자신들이 앞으로 어떤 일이 일어나겠지 되게 두려워하며 우울해지죠. 잠깐만요. 그러한 상황에서 올리브는 이렇게 말합니다. If I were truly a murderer as you suspect, I said with stupid pride, The final picture would have emerged from my secret treasury, not these things. Why these things? Asked Stork. When the Imperial Guards searched my house as they did yours, they shamelessly pilfered 2 of these gold pieces that I've spent my entire life collecting. I thought about how we'd be searched again on account of this wretched murderer, and I was right. If that last picture were with me, it would be here. It was a mistake to utter this last sentence. Nevertheless, I could sense that they were put at ease and no longer afraid that I strangled them in a dark corner of the lodge. Have I gained your trust as well? 네, 조금씩 이상한 느낌이 나기 시작하죠. 이제 이들은 자신들이 화가들의 조술이 일하던 시기부터 이야기를 하면서 슬퍼하고 즐거워하고 앞으로 자신들에게 어떤 일이 일어날지를 두려워하기 시작합니다. I thought my tears would quickly abate, but unable to restrain myself, I began to cry in great sobs. As I wept, I could sense that each of the others was overcome by feelings of fraternity, devastation, and sorrow. From now on, the European style will be preeminent in our Sultan's workshop. The styles and books to which we've devoted our entire lives will slowly be forgotten. Yes, in fact, our whole entire lives the whole venture will come to an end. And if the Urzurimis didn't throttle us and finish us off, the Sultan's torturers will leave us maimed. But as I cried, sobbed, and sighed, even though I continued to listen to the sad patter of the rain, a part of my mind sensed that these were not the things I was actually crying about. To what extent were the others aware of this? I felt vaguely guilty for my tears, which were at once genuine and false. 점점 더 올리버를 의심할 수밖에 없는 상황으로 지금 치닫기 시작했습니다. 스토리가. 과연 살인자는 누구일까요? Chapter 58 들어가겠습니다. I will be called a murderer. You'd forgotten about me, hadn't you? Why should I conceal my presence from you any longer? For speaking in this voice, which is gradually getting stronger and stronger, has become irresistible for me. At times, I restrain myself only with great effort, and I'm afraid that the strain in my voice will give me away. At times, I let myself go completely unchecked, and that's when those words, signs of my second character, which you might recognize, spill from my lips. My hands began to tremble. Beads of sweat collected on my forehead, and I realized at once that these little whispers of my body in turn will furnish new clues. 지금 살인자는 자기가 잡힐까봐 이 사람들이 자기가 살인자는 걸 깨닫게 될까봐 굉장히 두려워하고 있습니다. 이들은 이제 무슬림의 그림과 전설들에 대해서 생각하고 말을 하기 시작하는데요. 그 중에 살인자는 아들이 아버지를 죽이는, 그리고 아버지가 아들을 죽이는 전설에 대해서 언급을 합니다. The rain continued to patter on the roof of the dervish lodge as I paced back and forth. Suddenly, I said the following. 이제 그 얘기를 한 이유를 아주 짧게 얘기하죠. Either our father, Master Osman, will betray and kill us, or we shall betray and kill him. We were stricken with horror because what I said rang absolutely true. We fell silent, still pacing and panicked by the thought that everything would revert to its former state. I told myself the following. Tell the story of Afrasiab's murder of Siavash to change the subject, but that's a betrayal such as fails to frighten me. Recount the death of Husrev. 네, 사실 이 말로 결국 살인자는 누군지 밝혀집니다. Just then, I sensed that the others were whispering among themselves, maligning me. They were so quick to take out my legs that the 4 of us collapsed to the floor. There was a struggle and fight on the ground, but it was brief. I lay face up on the floor beneath the 3 of them. One of them sat on my knees, another on my right arm. Black pressed a knee into each of my shoulders. He firmly situated his weight between my stomach and chest, and sat on me. I was completely immobilized. All of us were stunned and breathing hard. This is what I remembered. My late uncle had a rogue son 2 years older than me. I hope he has been caught in the act of raiding caravans and has long since been beheaded. This jealous beast, realizing I knew more than he and was also more intelligent and refined, would find any excuse to pick a fight, or else he'd insist that we wrestle, and after quickly pinning me, he'd hold me down with his knees on my shoulders in the same way. He'd stare into my eyes the way Black was doing now, and let a string of saliva hang down, slowly directing it toward my eyes as it gained mass, and he'd be greatly entertained as I tried to avoid it by turning my head to the right and to the left. Black told me not to hide anything. Where was the last picture? Confess. I felt suffocating regret and anger for two reasons. First, I said everything I had for naught, unaware that they'd come to an agreement beforehand. Secondly, I hadn't fled, unable to imagine that their envy would reach this level. 네, 사실 블랙과 버터플라이 그리고 스토크는 어느 정도 올리브를 범인으로 이미 지목한 상태에서 왔었죠. 그 상황에서 우리가 어스맨을 배신하거나 어스맨이 우리를 배신할 거다라는 말을 꺼내버린 바람에 그 의심이 확신으로 변해버린 겁니다. 이제 그들은 올리브를 신문하기 시작합니다. 하지만 블랙은 별로 좋은 신문자가 될 수가 없는 것 같아요. 입을 안 열어요. 그러는 바람에 최후의 수단을 쓰게 됩니다. 먼저 자기가 보물고에서 몰래 가져온 바늘을 꺼냅니다. 그 다음에 오스맨이 자신의 눈을 직접 찌른 사연을 이야기하기 시작합니다. After Master Osman understood that our Sultan wanted to have his own portrait made in the style of the European masters, and that you all, whom he loved more than his own children, had betrayed him, he stuck this needle into each of his eyes last night in the treasury, in imitation of Bizad. Now, if I were to blind you, the accursed man responsible for bringing to ruin the workshop Master Osman, established at the expense of his entire life, what of it? Whether or not you blind me, in the end, we'll no longer be able to find a place for ourselves here, I said. If Master Osman truly goes blind or passes away, and we paint the way we feel like painting, embracing our faults and individuality under the influence of the Franks, so we might possess a style, we might resemble ourselves, but we won't be ourselves. No, even if we were to agree to paint like the old masters, reasoning that only in this way could we be ourselves, our Sultan, who's turned his back even on Master Osman, will find others to replace us. No one will look at us anymore. We shall only incur pity. The raiding of the coffee house merely rubs salt into our wounds, because half the blame for this incident will fall to us miniaturists, who've slandered a respected preacher. 지금 올리브는 상황을 너무나도 잘 이해하고 있는 거죠. 마스터 오스맨은 변화를 거부하는 사람입니다. 하지만 올리브의 말을 보면 거부를 한다고 해결되는 건 없고, 여기에 우리가 순응해서 우리 자신, 지금까지 지켜온 모든 전통을 버리는 뼈아픈 선택을 해야지만 생존할 수 있다, 이런 얘기를 하고 있는 거죠. 재밌는 건 이 올리브는 원래는 이런 진보적인 그림대에 굉장히 관심이 많은 사람이었는데, 마지막에 또 이렇게 얘기를 하는 걸 보면 사람이 쉽게 바뀌는 모습을 볼 수 있을 것 같습니다. 결국 블랙은 정말 찌르려 합니다. 하지만 다른 사람들, 다른 두 버터플라이가 스토크가 말리려고 해요. 그러다가 싸움이 나요. 어쩌다 보니까 스토크가 살인자의 눈을 찌르게 됩니다. 이제 눈까지 잃은 살인자는 잃게 될 살인자는 무너지기 시작합니다. I began to scream, nearly howling, not from the pain, but from the terror of comprehending fully what had been done to me. At first, I sensed my wailing put not only me at ease, but them as well. My voice brought us together. Even so, as my screaming persisted, their nervousness increased. I could no longer feel any pain. All I could think was that my eyes had been pierced with a needle. 그 다음에 계속 이야기가 시작됩니다. 그는 계속 결국 어떻게 자기가 elegant offend를 죽였는지를 이야기를 하기 시작하는데요. 그 다음에 이제 에르네스트가 죽인 이유도 말하기 시작합니다. elegant offend를 죽인 이유는 발췌된 부분을 먼저 읽어드리자면 This was how I first knew Elegant Fendi had broken from us completely and had gone his separate way after painting with us for 25 years. In the last 8 or 10 years after he married, I'd see him at the workshop, but I didn't even know what he was occupied with. He told me he saw the last picture, how it contained a sin so grave we'd never live it down. As a consequence, he maintained, we'd all burn in hell. He was agitated and possessed by fear, overcome with a sense of devastation felt by a man who'd unwittingly committed heresy. What's heresy? When I asked him this very question, he opened his eyes in wide and surprise as if to say, You mean you don't know? It was then I thought how our friend had aged as well as we all. He said unfortunate Anishta had brazenly used a perspectival method in the last picture. In this picture, objects weren't depicted according to their importance in Alice's mind, but as they appear to the naked eye, the way the Franks painted. This was the first transgression. Second was depicting our Sultan, the Caliph of Islam, the same size as a dog. The third transgression also involved rendering Satan the same size, and in an endearing light. But what surpassed them all, a natural result of introducing this Frankish understanding into our painting, was drawing our Sultan's picture as large as life and his face in all its detail, just like the idolaters do, or just like the portraits that Christians who couldn't save themselves from their inherent idolatrous tendencies painted upon their church walls and worshipped. Elegant Effendi, who learned of portraits from your Anishte, knew this quite well, and believed correctly that portrait was the greatest of sins, and would be the downfall of Muslim painting. As we hadn't gone to the coffee house where he claimed our exalted preacher Effendi and our religion were being maligned, he explained all of this to me while he walked down the street. Occasionally he'd stop as though seeking help, ask me whether all of this was indeed correct, whether there wasn't any recourse, and whether we'd truly burn in hell. He suffered fits of regret and beat his breast in remorse, but I was unpersuaded. He was an impostor who feigned regret. How did you know this? We've known Elegant Effendi since childhood. He's very orderly, quiet, ordinary, and colorless like his gilding. It was as if the man standing before me then was dumber, more naive, more devout, yet more superficial than the Elegant we knew. 네. 이제 Elegant Effendi는 죽죠. 그 다음에 에르네스테까지 죽은 이유를 그는 말을 하기 시작합니다. 이제 에르네스테를 죽인 이유는 좀 짧아요. I murdered your Erneste for 2 reasons. First, because he shamelessly forced the great master Osman into aping the Venetian art Sebastiano. Second, because in a moment of weakness, I lowered myself to ask him whether I had a style of my own. How did he respond? It seems I am possessed of a style, but coming from him, of course, this was not an insult. I remembered wondering in my shame if this were indeed praise. I consider style to be a variety of rootlessness and dishonor, but doubt was eating at me. I wanted nothing to do with style, but the devil was tempting me, and I was furthermore curious. Everybody secretly desires to have a style, said Black smartly. Everybody also desires to have his portrait made, just as our Sultan did. Is this affliction impossible to resist? I said. As this plague spreads, none of us will be able to stand against the methods of the Europeans. 네, 여기에서 계속 스토리에서 반복되는 점을 보면 결국 사람들이 계속 살인당하고 죽었던 것은 서양화가 오토만 제국에서 퍼지기 시작하고 세미라가 점점 퇴보되는 이 흐름에서의 세미라 화가들의 갈등 때문이라는 걸 정확하게 드디어 볼 수가 있습니다. 결국 마지막 그림을 올리브는 보여줍니다. 이때 이 마지막 그림에 대한 그 설명이 굉장히 자세하게 되어 있는데 여기를 한번 읽어드리도록 하겠습니다. The pictures we made on various parts of the 2 pages over the past year, tree, horse, Satan, death, dog, and women, were arranged large and small according to Nietzsche's inept new method of composition, in such a way that the dearly departed elegant Effendi's gilding and borders made us feel we were no longer looking at a page from a book, but at the world seen through a window. In the center of this world, where our Sultan should have been, was my own portrait, which I briefly observed with pride. I was somewhat unsatisfied with it because, after laboring in vain for days, looking into a mirror and erasing and reworking, I was able to achieve a good resemblance. Still, I felt unbridled elation because the picture not only situated me at the center of a vast world, but for some unaccountable and diabolic reason, it made me appear more profound, complicated, and mysterious than I actually was. I wanted only that my artist brethren recognize, understand, and share in my exuberance. I was both the center of everything, like a sultan or a king, and at the same time, myself. This situation fed my pride as it increased my embarrassment. Finally, these 2 feelings balanced each other, and I was able to relax and take dizzying pleasure in the picture. But for this pleasure to be complete, I knew every mark on my face and shirt, all of the wrinkles, shadows, moles, and boils, every detail from my whiskers to the weave of my clothes, and all their colors and all their shades had to be perfect, down to the minutest details, as much as the skill of Frankish painters would allow. I noted in the face of my own companions fear, bewilderment, and the inescapable feeling of devouring us all, jealousy, along with the anger revulsion they felt toward a man hopelessly mired in sin. They were also envious. 네, 술탄이 있어야 될 그림에 자기 초상화를 그렸습니다. 이제 이거를 본 화가들은 이 큰 죄를 지었다는 것에 대한 두려움에 휩싸이면서 동시에 이러한 방식으로 자신을 표현할 수 있다는 것에 대해서 굉장한 질투심을 느끼죠. 이제 올리브는 그들은 자꾸 오토만 제국의 술탄에게 데려가려고 하겠죠. 하지만 올리브는 쉽게 가지 않습니다. 마지막 발악을 해요. 이렇게 얘기를 합니다. So, listen carefully to the last of what I will tell you. There is no longer any place here in Istanbul for us master miniaturists to wish to live by skill and honor alone. Yes, this is what I've realized. If we're reduced to imitating the Frankish masters, as the late Anishta and our Sultan desired, we will be restrained if not by the Ezurimis and those like Elegant Effendi, then by the justified cowardice within us, and we won't be able to continue. If we fall sway to the devil and continue betraying everything that has come before in a futile attempt to attain a style and European character, we will still fail. Just as I failed in making this self-portrait despite all my proficiency and knowledge. This primitive picture I've made, without even achieving a fair resemblance of myself, revealed to me what we've known all along about omitting it. The proficiency of the Franks will take centuries to attain. Had Anishta Effendi's book been completed and sent to them, the Venetian masters would have smirked, and their ridicule would have reached Venetian Doge. That is all. They have equipped that the Ottomans have given up being Ottoman and will no longer fear us. How wonderful it would be if we could persist on the path of the old masters. But no one wants this, neither His Excellency our Sultan nor Black Effendi, who is melancholy because he has no portrait of his precious Sekre. In that case, sit yourselves down and do nothing but ape the Europeans century after century. Proudly sign your names to your imitation paintings. The old masters I read tried to depict the world the way God saw it, and to conceal their individuality, they never signed their names. You, however, are condemned to signing your names to conceal your lack of individuality. But there is an alternative. Each of you has perhaps been summoned, and if so, you're hiding it from me. Akbar, Sultan of Hindustan, is strewing about money and blandishments, trying to gather in his court the most talented artists in the world, It's quite apparent that the book to be completed for the 1000th year of Islam will not be prepared here in Istanbul, but in the workshops of Agra. 네. 여기서 보면 일단 그들은 서양화를 바로 따라잡을 만큼 실력이 없어서 지금 현재 세미나를 포기하면 오히려 비웃음만 사게 된다 라고 얘기를 하면서 오히려 지금 현재 오토만 제국 쪽에서 서양화가 그나마 발전되어 있는 곳은 여기 이스탄불이 아니라 아그라다 라는 얘기를 합니다. 그렇지만 이들이 말을 들을 일은 없겠죠. 그래서 이제 올리브는 탈출을 하려고 합니다. 블랙을 제압하고 자기 것들을 챙기고 나가려 하는데 블랙이 또 그를 붙잡아요. 그러는 바람에 다시 몸싸움이 나오고 몸싸움이 나는 와중에 셰크레를 행복하게 해달라고 갑자기 올리브가 말합니다. 우리 앞서 말했듯이 올리브 살인자는 셰크레를 사랑하고 있었죠. 근데 갑자기 뜬금없이 그 말을 해요. 그랬다가 그의 말로는 몸이 저절 움직였다 하지만 갑자기 또 칼날을 내리칩니다. 행복하게 하라고 말해놓고 칼날을 내리쳐요. 다행히 블라이크가 몸을 움직이고 이 사람도 그렇게 확신을 가지고 진짜 죽이려고 한 건 아니었기 때문에 어깨에 중상을 입고 끝납니다. 그리고 올리브는 이제 떠나요. I left the lodge within a kind of deathly silence punctuated by Black's moaning. Nearly running, I fled the wet and muddy garden, the dark neighborhood. The ship that was to take me to Alkar Khan's workshop would depart after the morning azan. At that hour, the last rowboat will leave for the ship from Galleon Harbor. As I ran, tears poured down my eyes. 네, 여기를 보면 이 사람은 이제 아그라에 있는 아크바 술탄의 워크숍에서 일할 목적으로 도주를 하기로 결정을 한 겁니다. 그래서 이제 도망가면서 자신의 추억이 담긴 길을 걸어가며 이제 마지막 인사 같은 걸 하면 달려가고 있는데요. 순간 핫산과 맞춰집니다. 핫산은 머리 끝까지 화가 나 있습니다. 셰크레를 다시 잃었으니까요. 하필 블랙이 단검을 들고 있었는데 그걸 이제 또 이 올리브가 들고 있는 거예요. 문제는 뭐냐? 블랙의 단검은 셰프 캣이 핫산의 집에서 떠날 때 들고 왔던 겁니다. 핫산은 올리브가 셰크레를 데려갔던 그 남자들 중 한 명으로 오해를 해요. 그래서 공격을 합니다. I wasn't even able to raise my dagger. I simply lifted the hand in which I held my satchel. The satchel dropped. In one smooth motion, without losing speed, the sword cut first through my hand and then clear through my neck, lopping off my head. I knew I'd been beheaded from the 2 odd steps taken by my poor body, which had left me behind in its confusion, from the stupid manner in which my hand waved the dagger, and from the way my lonely body collapsed, blood spraying from the neck like a fountain. My poor feet, which continued to move as though still walking, kicked uselessly like the legs of a dying horse. 결국 살인자인 올리브도 목숨을 잃습니다. 그 다음에 마지막으로 챕터 59에서는 셰크레가 다시 나옵니다. 친척의 집에서 피신하고 있었던 셰크레와 자녀들은 중상을 입은 블랙을 맞이하게 됩니다. I sensed that he would die upon arriving home, and I pitied him, not because he would die alone, but because he never known any true happiness. I could see from the sorrow and determination in his eyes that he wished not to be in this strange house, and that he actually wanted to disappear without being seen by anybody in this horrible state. With some difficulty, they mounted him on a horse. 그리고 블랙은 어느 정도 자신의 자존심이 있었기 때문에 셰크레와 에네시테의 집으로 갑니다. 나중에 에스터가 와서 셰크레가 블랙을 간호하던 도중에 방문을 하고 핫산이 올리브를 결국 죽였다고 이야기를 합니다. As she recounted, I thought about where my unfortunate father was. Learning that the murderer had received his due punishment at first put my fears to rest, and revenge lent me a feeling of comfort and justice. At that instant, I wondered intensely whether my now dead father could experience this feeling. Suddenly, it seemed to me that the entire world was like a palace with countless rooms whose doors opened into one another. We were able to pass from one room to the next only by exercising our memories and imaginations. But most of us, in our laziness, rarely exercised its capacities and forever remained in the same room. 이후에 사실 블랙과 셰크레는 사실 셰크레는 사랑 없는 결혼을 한 것처럼 얘기를 하지만 26년 동안 결혼 생활을 이어나갑니다. We, my children and I were happy, but Black couldn't be. The most obvious reason for this was the wound on his shoulder and neck that never completely healed. My beloved husband was left crippled, as I heard him described by others. But this doesn't disrupt his life other than in its appearance. There were even times when I heard other women who seen my husband from a distance describe him as handsome. But Black's right shoulder was lower than the left and his neck remained oddly cocked. I also heard gossip to the effort that a woman like myself could only marry a husband whom she felt was beneath her, and how as much as Black's wound was the cause of his discontent, it was also the secret source of our shared happiness. 네, 이걸 보면 어느 정도 셰크레가 블랙과 계속 지낼 수 있었던 이유는 블랙이 불쌍해졌기 때문이다라는 걸 알 수 있는데요. 올리브의 부상으로 인해서 좀 몸에 장애가 생긴 블랙을 보며 셰크레는 어느 정도 뭐라고 해야 될까 우월감을 느끼는 걸 즐겼던 것 같습니다. 이 이후에 셰크레는 어떤 일들이 일어나는지에 대해서 계속 얘기를 하게 되는데요. 먼저 세미라의 운명 그리고 서양화가 어떻게 오토만 제국에 진보했는지를 짧게 설명을 합니다. The conflict between the methods of the old masters of Herat and the Frankish masters that paved the way for quarrels among artists and endless quandaries was never resolved. For painting itself was abandoned. Artists painted neither like Easterners or Westerners. The miniaturists did not grow angry and revolt, but like old men who quietly succumbed to an illness, they gradually accepted the situation with humble grief and resignation. They were neither curious about nor dreamed about the work of the great masters of Arad and Tabriz, whom they once followed with awe, or the Frankish masters, whose innovative methods they aspired to, caught indecisively between envy and hatred. Just as the doors of houses are closed of an evening and the city is left to darkness, painting was also abandoned. It was mercilessly forgotten that we'd once looked upon our world quite differently. 결국 서양화가 진보되면서 세미라는 퇴보하고 오히려 그림에 대한 사람들의 시선 그리고 화가들이 사회적인 위치에서 떨어졌다는 걸 알 수가 있습니다. 아쉽게도 은혜시대의 책도 결국 완성되지 못하는데요. 그의 작품들, 그가 개유에 기획했던 작품들은 모두 여러 개의 앨범, 볼륨들로 묶여져 가지고 술탄의 보물고에 보관이 됩니다. 마지막으로 스토크와 버터플라이는 각각 좀 다른 길을 걷게 되는데요. 스토크는 마스터 오스만이 실명된 이후 2년 후에 서거합니다. 그 다음 화가의 총 책임자가 바로 스토크가 그 자리를 차지하게 되고요. 버터플라이는 카페, 천막에 장식을 만드는 완전히 다른 완전히 상업적인 일을 하게 됩니다. 셰크레는 마지막으로 자신이 원했던 두 가지 그림을 말하게 되는데요. 하나는 자신이 젊었을 때의 초상화, 그 다음에 두 번째는 행복에 관한 그림. 셰크레의 행복은 두 아이와 함께 즐거운 시간을 보내는, 아이와 함께 완전한 평화 속에서 그 세 명이서만 있는 그림입니다. 여기에 블랙이 없는 걸 보면 셰크레는 끝까지 블랙을 사랑하진 않은 것 같습니다. 마지막으로 이 책은 이러한 문구로 끝납니다. In the hopes that he might pen this story, which is beyond depiction, I told it to my son Orhan. Without hesitation, I gave him the letters Hassan and Black sent me, along with the rough horse illustrations with a smeared ink, which were found on poor elegant Effendi. Above all, don't be taken in by Orhan if it's drawn Black more absent-minded than he is, made our lives harder than they are, Shefka worse and me prettier and harsher than I am. For the sake of a delightful and convincing story, there isn't a lie Orhan wouldn't deign to tell. 그렇게 My name is Red를 우리는 완독했습니다. 와! 너무 속 시원하네요. Chapter 59까지 드디어 끝냈고요. 야, 이번 스토리는 정말 일단 길었고요. 이 책을 읽으면서 제가 느꼈던 점은 이 오르한 파목 작가는 그림 얘기를 하고 싶어서 이 소설을 썼구나 라는 느낌이 많이 들었어요. 왜냐하면 그러한 그림들에 대한 묘사 그리고 사람들에 대한 설명 그런 것들이 너무나도 생생하게 되어 있어서 마치 한 폭의 그림을 보는 느낌이 계속해서 들었기 때문입니다. 이런 걸 보면 이 My Name is Red는 사실 그 스토리 라인을 위해서 읽는다기보다는 그런 아름다운 그림들에 대한 묘사 그런 걸 감상하기 위해서 읽는 게 훨씬 더 이 책에서 취지에 맞지 않을까라는 생각이 들었고요. 하지만 그럼에도 불구하고 스토리도 굉장히 재밌었습니다. 물론 막장이긴 하고 뭐라고 해야 될까요? 우리가 아침 드라마에서 많이 보는 내용이랑 비슷한 것 같긴 하지만 생각해보면 이게 원조잖아요. 이게 먼저 나오고 그 다음에 그런 막장 드라마들이 나왔기 때문에 그 훨씬 더 뭐라고 해야 될까요? 오리지널성이 느껴졌다고 저는 생각이 되었습니다. 네, 그러면 지금까지 약 2달간 함께 해주신 분들 너무 감사드리고요. 저는 이만 마치도록 하겠습니다. 다음 달에는 조금 더 쉬운 책으로 제가 골라서 좀 더 읽기 편한 책, 제가 이번에 너무 힘들었거든요. 좀 더 읽기 편한 책으로 다시 선정해서 돌아오도록 하겠습니다. 좋아요, 구독 부탁드리고요. 좋은 밤 되시길 바랍니다. 안녕히 계십시오.